My name is John Thompson. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, not far from Cincinnati. I was the youngest of 4 siblings, living a pretty normal life, until something happened that I still can't explain. This story isn't about ghost sightings or vague feelings. It's about something far worse, something that terrified me to my core and left a permanent scar on my soul. It all started in the winter of 1998. We had just moved into a large, old house on Elm Street. My parents were thrilled. An old Victorian-style home, spacious and affordable, but I didn't like it from the start. Something about that house gave me a deep, unsettling feeling. It was cold, even on the warmest days. And sometimes I felt like I was being watched, especially from the basement. I ignored it for the most part. I mean, it's just a house, right? One night, my older brother and I were alone in the house. It was a Friday night, and my parents were out for dinner. We were watching TV in the living room when we heard the front door open and close. Thinking it was Mom or Dad, we didn't even look away from the screen. But then, we heard heavy footsteps moving towards us from the hallway. "Mom? Dad," I called out, but there was no response. My brother turned to me, his face pale. We both knew something wasn't right. We got up and slowly moved towards the door, but the footsteps stopped. The house was dead silent. We searched the house, but no one was there. The door was locked and all the windows were closed. My brother tried to brush it off as our imagination, but I wasn't convinced. Something, or someone had entered our home, and I knew it. That night I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of something tapping on my bedroom window. I slowly turned my head towards it. And there, outside, stood a man. His face was pale, almost translucent. He had no eyes, just dark, empty sockets staring directly at me. I was frozen in terror. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come out. And then he smiled. It was a horrible, twisted grin that made my blood run cold. I bolted out of bed and ran to my brother's room. I told him what I saw, but when he looked out the window, there was no one there. He said it was just a nightmare, but I knew what I saw. It wasn't a dream. A few days later, strange things began happening in the house. Objects would move on their own, lights would flicker, and we'd hear soft whispering coming from the basement. One night, I gathered the courage to ask the neighbor about the house. He hesitated at first, but eventually told me that the previous owners had fled in the middle of the night. They never even bothered selling it, they just left. He mentioned that their son had gone missing and was last seen in the basement. That's when it clicked. The man I saw outside my window, it wasn't a man at all. It was their son. My brother and I decided to investigate. We went down to the basement together, flashlights in hand. As soon as we stepped in, the temperature dropped. The air felt thick, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Then we saw it scrawled across the basement wall, and what looked like blood were the words, "I'm still here." Suddenly, the basement door slammed shut, trapping us inside. My flashlight flickered, and in the dim light I saw him again. Standing in the corner, the boy with no eyes. He was coming closer, his mouth twisted into that horrible grin. We screamed for help, pounding on the door, and just as he was about to reach us, the door flew open. My parents had returned home and found us both pale and trembling at the top of the stairs. After that night, we moved out within a week. I never went back to that house on Elm Street, but sometimes late at night, I can still hear the tapping on my window. Some say the boy's spirit still lingers in that house, waiting for someone to uncover the truth of his disappearance. What do you think? Was it just a series of strange coincidences, or was something much darker at play? If you've ever experienced something similar, let us know in the comments below.